Today we're going to explore something that tends to get people riled up, the need that we sometimes feel to tell others what they should do, as if we feel it's our job to manage the lives of others. So, has anyone ever done this to you, or have you done this to somebody else? Often we mean well when we do this, but telling somebody what they should do is something that I'm personally trying to omit from my communication with others. Hey friends, I'm Jess and you are watching Living Free, and this is where we discuss becoming liberated from the various traps of life. So please support this work if you find it helpful and worthwhile. So everything I say here today is best taken in the context that I'm intending it, with the common sense that there are times when, of course, uninvited intervention into people's lives is necessary for the health and safety of that person and of others. So with that caveat, let's get on with it. Most of the unsolicited advice we get in life is from people or from groups of people that really just want to impose their views on us, to convince us of not necessarily a better way, but of their way. And it's not always done in a malicious manner, but sometimes we can get defensive in the delivery of the message. And some might say, well, yeah, but Jess, aren't these advice videos that you make the same thing? No, I don't really think so, because I try to use the phrasing, you should do this or you should do that. And obviously I might not get it right all the time, but I'm catching it more often than maybe I used to. Besides, some people don't really read or watch unwanted advice on the internet, unless of course they're looking to find something wrong with it. But there are plenty of times that we might want to consider minding our own business and respecting where a person is on their very individual personal path. After all, it is their life. And if people are seeking advice from us, that's one thing, but delivery always matters no matter what. We all know those who constantly say, you should, to other people. We might even do it ourselves out of habit, but I would suggest that you should is kind of poor delivery of advice. So let's talk about setting healthy boundaries with the you shoulders in our lives and how we can respect the boundaries of others by minding our business a little more often. And this is more about cultivating our own self-awareness and cultivating a more respectful coexistence with our fellow humans, which is something that I'm sure you can agree is really lacking these days. So how then do we resist the urge to tell people what they should do? Now, as social creatures, we naturally want a connection with others. It's how we're built. We want to help, right? Part of that connection is getting people to see things our way. Unfortunately, without being willing to see things their way. Most of the time, our intention is good, but we can't ignore that often behind this is the egoic mind. And the natural tendency of the egoic mind is to control and to seek validation as we attempt to connect with others. We're all doing it to each other all the time. It's just kind of the human way. Everything seems to be transactional to some degree or another. And we can receive validation by feeling accepted by someone when they tell us what we should do and we agree with them and jump on board. Or we can feel validated in our beliefs if we tell them what they should believe and they decide to jump on board with us. It kind of goes both ways. And we all know somebody who's really overbearing in their opinions, right? Am I right here? Constantly shoulding everyone because obviously their way is superior. It's not easy to be in a relationship with these kind of people, especially when we have an emotional bond with them. And these relationships sadly become very dysfunctional and codependent because there's always this one person in the relationship constantly trying to manage the other. And when it comes down to it, we only have control over our own actions, our own attitudes, our own thoughts, opinions, and beliefs. Nobody can really tell us what to think. And if they do, we can choose how to respond. I don't want to ignore the fact that some of the audience here are working through addiction issues. And those of us who have experience with this sometimes have a hard time trusting ourselves due to various reasons. And at the same time, when we don't trust ourselves, we also resist when others try to tell us what we should do. We get defensive when we feel like they're trying to control us in some way. So does that mean that we shouldn't try to help others. I think if there's someone that we care about who is obviously on a harmful path, that finding a more constructive and more non-judgmental way of offering support is absolutely necessary. But at the same time, respecting their individual perspectives, even if we don't see it the same way. We have to respect that we all have different experiences. We all have different perspectives. And the way one person's mind works is just really none of our business. So I encourage you to find a more loving and patient approach that is more respectful, and let that person discover on their own if they really want to agree or not. And attempting in any way to coerce or force someone to conform really doesn't work. And, it leads to contempt in that relationship. The latter applies to those with whom we have strong emotional ties, but inserting ourselves in someone's life when we're not invited in any way, shape, or form really does not go well for either party. In today's world of political polarization and the social media that is attached to that, egos are just simply running rampant. They're busy degrading others. They're disrespecting. They're dehumanizing. They're manipulating. They're lying. And they're basically doing anything they can to control others and further their agenda. It's essentially just egos at war with each other. There's really no honor and respect left, and self-respect is just gone. So where is wisdom in all of this? It seems to be missing from all the current beliefs and trends and ideologies. And we may even find ourselves jumping on board with, what the masses are screaming so that we can feel included, so we can feel like we are part of something, a part of a revolution, a movement, whatever side of the issue that resonates with us most on an emotional level. It seems like we're no longer our own. It seems true wisdom sees value in being true to ourselves and honoring principles of respect and decency. But as long as we continue to exist in the dream state of the ego identity, we're susceptible to be carried away in this conflict. We all have egos. They never disappear, but some of us seem to be more attached to them than others. Self-aware people seem to understand this better. An unhealthy ego is over-attached to its insecurities, though it may not admit that, and it really holds tight to its belief systems and its sense of identity that is built out of those belief systems. It's really difficult for that person to realize their true self, which isn't built upon all those concepts and beliefs. This is why some ego minds love to fight, and they love to control, and they love to manipulate and demean people. They love to coerce, and they just want to impose upon others. I believe that compassionate communication happens when we sense that we're not as separate as we may have previously thought that we were. We all have our own little inner worlds with our own little piece of mental real estate that, we've lived on this little piece of real estate since we were born. And we can learn to respect that in others too. We have our real estate and they have theirs. And we can't assume that we know what life is like on their side of the property line. The best communication involves listening. I shouldn't even have to say that. It's talking with people, not talking at them. Instead of offering mandates about how they should be, we can offer maybe our perspective based on our personal stories, because that's really what it comes down to. It comes down to what our personal experiences. That is really all that we have. We don't have all the answers. We only have our own experience. And I think that a little humility and grace can really go a long way as we learn to leave the you shoulds out of the conversation. So delivery matters. Maybe instead of saying, you should do this, try asking, well, have you considered this? And leave it open to encourage a more open dialogue that doesn't have the sense of imposition or the tone of judgment, but only if that person is willing and is inviting that conversation. If not, we can back off respectfully. It's also helpful to frame any advice that we might give from our own life, not from their life. Don't make it seem like you're taking the position of moral authority in the matter, but instead, with grace and humility, share how you were helped. Tone always matters. People know when someone is being condescending toward them. We can all sense that condescending energy when somebody has it, and many people do. So communicate in a way that cares more about how it's received and not about feeling powerful or authoritative over them. Treat others as our equal because they are, period. Respect their autonomy, empower and support them. They have been living with their mind their whole lives, and we have to respect that. And we have to let go of any sort of superiority complex that exists in the illusion of ego. And self-awareness recognizes when a person is just not open to the advice that we might have for them. And we don't take offense, but we respect that boundary and we back off. We can also set boundaries with those who might be trying to impose on us. We don't have to engage with them. We don't have to feel put down. We don't have to feel manipulated and coerced by them. If you need support, you want support, seek it from those who actually know how to communicate with compassion. So those of us who have experience in addiction and are in recovery, well, can you agree? A lot of us are used to being judged. We are used to that unsolicited advice from those that just don't understand us. And even our loved ones can try to help us, but it's in a way that just pushes us away. And I know when that happens, it's kind of a combination of our inability to surrender to the reality of our problem. It's also shame and various other factors. Poor communication from people, it only serves to intensify what we're already feeling inside about ourselves, which is often deep shame. The best advice empowers us and it gives us hope, and it's compassionate and helpful and respectful. The misguided urge to you should others is an undesirable habit that really isn't skillful. It isn't productive for any sort of communicating. We don't know the inner mental landscape of others, and we can't even pretend that we do. We have our experience, and they have theirs. We can't dictate how they should respond to our advice. We can't presume anything. We're not in their shoes, and they are not in ours. So learn to foster a mutual respect by respecting boundaries and setting them ourselves if necessary. Inserting ourselves when we're not invited just never does go well. And if you feel the urge to impose on other people, maybe instead we can turn inward and really just focus on our own business. Thank you so much for being here with me today. As I've said before, these videos are a way that I'm teaching myself as I share at the same time with you all. So please subscribe if you're finding some value. I appreciate all of you who regularly watch and comment on these videos. And with that, I will see you all next time.